Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. This is the Shift Wellness and Resiliency Effective Leadership Series, the Attuned Leader. My name is Eileen Lafergie with OJJDP's NTAC. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording this webinar. It will be posted on OJJDP's YouTube and Multimedia page. And you will receive these slides after the presentation, so you'll be able to access all the links. So help us count. If you're viewing by yourself, no need to type anything, but if you are viewing as a group, please go to the chat window and type in how many people are joining you today so we can get an accurate count. Some tips. Closed captioning is available in the multimedia panel. If you're having any audio issues, you can have the WebEx system dial your phone line using the Call Me feature. And if you have any technical difficulties, please contact me or my colleague, Trevor Wolf. We are with OJJDP's NTAC. And the agenda. I'm doing the opening remarks. We have Basilia Padilla with the Innocent Justice Foundation as the moderator, as well as the presenters, Carol Brusca and Dave Frater. And after the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat and we will get to them at the Q&A session. You can also send them directly to the panelists if you'd like. And then I will be closing out our presentation. And I do want to let you know that you will receive a certificate of attendance along with a PDF of the presentation as soon as we are done today. Okay. And by that, I am going to turn this over to our moderator.
Thanks so much, Eileen. My name is Basilia Padilla, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm also the program coordinator for the Shift program here at the Innocent Justice Foundation. Really excited to bring you the first part of our webinar series, where we're going to be focusing on the Attuned Leader. Just to give you some background into our organization, we were funded back in 2000. We were funded by OJJDP, and we were founded back in 2007. For my teams and their affiliates and students' relationship that we understood that the heavy burden that a lot of these individuals face when dealing with secondary trauma, traumatic stress, and we developed a program where we can help alleviate that stress and also normalize asking for help. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to our trainers, Dave Frater and Carol Brusca. I will be going off and not with you, but I will be hanging out in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to in the chat and I will pass them along to our trainers. We also did get quite a few pre-registration questions and we're going to try to get to as many of those as possible. Feel free to take it away, Dave. Go.
Thank you, Basilia. Certainly a pleasure to be here today. As Basilia said, both Carol and I are part of the Innocent Justice Foundation, and just a little bit about myself. You can obviously see it there on the screen, but I've been in law enforcement for the past 26 years. I started out with the Attorney General's office in Pennsylvania. I now work for the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's office in Ohio. And I've spent the last 18 years working specifically with regards to internet crimes against children. And as you can imagine, I mean, not without its stresses, not without its trauma, not without its difficulties, as it relates to what our investigators, our examiners, our civilian support staff are exposed to on a daily basis. And for all the success that we've had as a task force, where we really failed in the early days or the early years, if you will, was with regards to mental health and wellness. And the light bulb moment for me that not only made me more aware of the need to be more attuned and more effective as a leader, but also to have a program like the Innocent Justice Foundation was when we had an investigator who said to me one day, you know, I don't like what I've become. And we really had nothing in place for her to fall back on from a mental health, wellness, resiliency standpoint. So that was really the moment, probably about 8 or 9 years ago, where we partnered with Innocent Justice, where we started to focus more on not just the day-to-day investigations and prosecutions, but more so being attuned to our folks, because obviously without them, without you, we can't continue to do this job and continue the mission that we're there to do. So Thrilled to be here today, and I'll turn it over to Carol.
Thanks, Dave. So my name is Carol Brusca, and like Dave said, with his slide, my information is here for the most part. I have been working with the Attorney General, New Mexico Attorney General's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for, I think it's about 8 years now as their contract mental health provider. So what that means is I support them by giving them trainings. We meet individually. I reach out to the commander to kind of help them actually learn to become an attuned leader, support them in whatever way I can. And so just like Dave was talking about, the work definitely lends itself to being traumatized. And if we can figure out a way to support people so that they can work through that trauma by just having skills in place or by just having resources in place, then we can keep those individuals that we've invested a lot of time and effort into, and individuals who truly want to be doing the job that they're doing. So for me, I like to be able to give people lots of tools and techniques on a regular basis so that they can have a giant toolbox and then just use the tools that they need. And being an attuned leader, we're hoping that we can pass along some information about how you can do that as leadership and how you can also know where to go for yourself as well as for your team if you're needing support. So thanks for joining us today. I'm happy to be here, and let's move on.
And if you've been with us before, if you've had the pleasure of prior Innocent Justice Foundation trainings, you've seen this slide before. We start out almost every presentation that we do, both virtual and in person, really trying to smash this stigma. One of the biggest hurdles for us in creating a mental health program, in being more attuned, was the idea that, people just don't want to talk about what's bothering them or what is affecting them day to day. And we've really tried over the course of the last few years, we try, every day with these programs to really have you set aside this idea that you can't talk about what's ailing you or what's bothering you, that there are not other people that are going through the same things that you are as well. And so as we walk through this training today, keep that in mind, that, we really want to set aside that stigma or that idea that that the workplace is not something or somewhere that we can talk about mental health, wellness, resiliency, and those issues that are affecting us.
And one of the things along the same line of what Dave was just talking about is when Dave and I talk, we talk in general terms, but we talk from our own perspective. So we recognize and respect that everybody has a different place of coming from a different place, whether it's a family, whether it's divorced, whether it's married, whatever your circumstance might be. We recognize that not every single person out there is like myself or like Dave. And so if you have things that you want to add related to your perspective on something or your the lens that you're viewing your life through, we would love to hear that because we can only talk from our lens. So the objectives that we're going to cover today, we're going to explore how to become an effective leader. And, being an effective leader, what we mean by that is making sure that you've got the skills in place to be aware of what your staff is going through and then how to address that. We're going to discuss the importance of wellness for success while in a leadership role, learn about the importance of self-compassion for success, and understand the steps needed to create an effective and resilient team.
And obviously, leadership is difficult. When I transferred from Pennsylvania to Ohio in 2009, I went from a frontline investigator to a supervisor overnight. And admittedly, there was part of me that didn't even realize I was coming into a supervisory role. That created some confusion with the folks here in Ohio, with my new unit. But it really didn't prepare me well, nor was I prepared well in my previous job for some of the leadership roles that I was thrust into. So, I think when we talk about becoming an effective leader, that's something oftentimes that may happen over time. It's not something that you're going to attend a class for. It's not something that you're going to read a book for. I've read a number of leadership books, and I can't tell you how frustrated I get from time to time because a lot of the practices I feel like are things that, you know, are not necessarily we're going to put into practice. I think there's a lot of simplicity to leadership, especially when we talk about some of the objectives that Carol mentioned, right? The importance of wellness for success within a leadership role, self-compassion, gratitude. I had an investigator a few years back who is no longer with us, but she said to me as she walked out the door one day, she said, "No one's scared of you." And I know how she meant it when she said it, but there was a part of me that thought, well, that's a compliment. I'm going to take that as a compliment because I don't want to be this law enforcement supervisor that, you know, barks orders and demands things all the time. I mean, we are in a position or in a unit where internet crimes against children is a horrible environment to work in. It's very satisfying, but at the same time, it brings with it a lot of burden, a lot of stress, a lot of ongoing trauma. So it's been more effective for me to be that servant leader where I can be out front, where I can be with my folks, where I can understand that they're going to have a bad day some days. And the last thing I want to do is, you know, order them around and do some things that are going to put them in a wrong position or the wrong frame of mind. So, you know, these quotes, again, I think, again, we see quotes all the time about leaders, but I really like this quote from Teddy Roosevelt about, you know, it's how much we care that really shows people, you know, what we know and what we can be there and how we can be there for them.
So when we think about attunement, it's not something that, at least in my regular day-to-day conversation, I use the word attunement or think about attunement. I think it's a much more subtle kind of a skill than we might first think. So it's how we react towards others. And what does that mean? It's not like, what do we say or what do we do? It's, are we recognizing what they're saying without saying things? If I recall correctly, our verbal dialogue is only 7% maybe of actually how we, of communication, that the majority of our communication is through nonverbal. So if we recognize that the majority of our conversation is done through nonverbal cues, attunement, part of attunement is recognizing those nonverbal cues and what those nonverbal cues mean. So it's not just seeing somebody and popping your head in their office and saying, "How are you doing?" and they've got their head on their desk and they're slumped over and they say, "I'm doing fine," and you say, "No, they must be doing fine." You know, it's going and looking at what messages they're sending in their body language, what message they're sending by not saying something, what message they're sending by their interactions with others. And so it's, how do we react towards others? If I see Dave looking really happy and he's smiling and he's joking, if from my attunement, I'm going to say those are indicators to me that he's doing pretty well. But if I say to him, "Dave, how you doing?" and he says, "I'm not doing well at all," then I'll say, you know, "Tell me more, Dave, because what you're showing me is that you're doing really well." And it could be he's saying that he's putting on this face because he doesn't want people to know how he really feels, or maybe he really does feel fantastic, and he's just, you know, it's just he's not expressing that in the way that that he really feels. And it's how we form relationships. So have you ever you know, you go to the grocery store and you might have a conversation, go to the same clerk every day, right? Every time you go to the store. And so you have a relationship with that person in that you might, they might talk about the groceries you buy or items that you've tried, but the relationship is not necessarily a very deep relationship. It's pretty shallow. It's just a relationship built on strictly interaction. Now, it might grow to be something more than that. It might grow to be where you go into the store one day and the person, you can see that the person has been crying and you're going to use your attunement skill to understand what's going on with them. But attunement is about forming relationships. It's about, with your staff, are you able to recognize what's going on with them by just looking at them? Are you able to recognize by the cues they're giving you? Do you know them well enough to know when they're having a good day or when they're having a bad day, aside from what they're saying verbally. It's the ability to resonate with another person's feelings. So if you're working an ICAT case or another traumatic type of, in another traumatic situation, and you talk to one of your coworkers and they say, you know, this one case really got to me. It's being able to understand, to put yourself in that person's shoes and to say, I can understand, you know, this was a case where there was a child that was the same age as that person's child. And so being able to resonate with that person's feelings and understanding what their experience must be like, that's attunement. And it's the ability to understand what someone says is not actually or always the way they actually feel. And this could be either way. It could be they're saying they're fine when they're really not, that they're not really fine when they say they are, you know, are it, all sorts of things. But it's the ability to look at the situation, see an individual, and then recognize what's going on with them and being able to make a judgment based on what you know about that person and how they're responding.
Yeah, and you know, I think Carol makes a great point as far as the relationships. I mean, the biggest issue for me was, again, coming from a non-supervisory role overnight into a supervisory role, and having to realize that, you know, there's a fine line between being a supervisor and being a coworker, and the fact that we have different relationships in each of those personas, if you will. You know, what's helped me just since we initiated our own wellness program, our own mental health policy, is taking a step back to understand my own feelings, my own emotions, and how that plays into how I relate to my coworkers, those folks that I supervise or that I have to lead out in the field. I do really sort of a body scan, if you will, as I sit in the car each morning. Before I come into work, I say to myself, you know, how am I feeling? How are my feelings, my emotions going to impact how I interact with other people? Because clearly I've formed some relationships with some folks. I've formed, you know, some relationships with other folks, you know, because of my conversations and my interactions with people. I may have a better relationship with somebody because they are more open with regards to the things that are bothering them, not just professionally, but also personally. But a lot of what my own people tell me is really based on how they perceive me, my feelings, my emotions. And when they give me that feedback, as I wanted them to do, because that's one of the things that our program really has done, is it's opened up that dialogue. I've said to folks, I want to know when you're not your best self, and I want you to tell me when you think I'm not my best self. And so we've had that dialogue, and that's helped me understand my feelings and emotions better. Obviously, you know, Carol talked about, you know, people that say, hey, I'm fine, and they're not really fine, right? Beyond just what someone says, but being able to see those signals and, you know your folks better than anybody. We spend so much time with the people that we work with, almost more than, you know, our own friends and family. So when someone's having a bad day, when someone's not dialed in as they should be, I mean, not only do I want to recognize that, but then I also want to find the time to pull them aside, have that conversation, and know that they can speak freely if there's something that's bothering them. One of my biggest weaknesses is this idea of active listening. You know, I continue to this day to try and be a better listener, and that means, you know, saying, hey, I'm going to put aside whatever I'm doing right now, and I'm going to listen actively, attentively, because even this morning there was an issue where, you know, a group was going out and doing something, and I was told that on Monday, and I clearly missed it. I was questioning people this morning as to why they were coming in late, because they were working late, and I clearly wasn't listening. So regardless of how, you know, much we practice this, we're still going to have days where, you know, we're not as good as we should be. And then I think, you know, most importantly, in some cases, you know, finding that common ground. Just because we're leaders, just because we're supervisors, doesn't mean we can't have a common ground with our employees, our frontline staff, those people that we supervise. And some of that, a lot of that is just taking the time to understand, what people are interested in, what gets them out of bed in the morning. Everybody that comes into our unit, I have them fill out a simple form. It asks them their favorite drink, their favorite lunch food, their favorite hobby, the things that they like to do. It has nothing to do with work. So when we celebrate birthdays, when we celebrate achievements, when we do things that are supportive of their efforts, it's nice to know, some things that maybe I have in common with, or that other people in the office have in common with them. So becoming an attuned leader is an ever-evolving process. And so in the, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat box there, we're just going to ask you to tell us what attunement looks like to you. And so please feel free to type your responses to the question in the chat box, and we'll discuss and address some of them as they come in. Empathy, that's a good one.
Yep. Awareness of others, absolutely. Getting to know staff as humans before, yes, exactly. Engagement, Care, yeah. Compassion, exactly. My ability to pick up on the subtle, listening, let's see. Being present, yep. Authentic connection, and that's the key. The authenticity of the relationship, I think, is important, because people can recognize when you're just going through the motions, or when you're saying what you're supposed to say. When you genuinely care, when you've got genuine empathy or concern for others, genuine attunement, that's evident. Empathy and understanding, yeah. Great answers. Okay. So what are the benefits for leadership, to be an attuned leader? Why would we want you to have one more thing to think about on your plate? When your plate is already overflowing, why do we want you to have one more thing? Well, because it's good for stress reduction and to increase resilience, not only for you, but for your team and vice versa. So if you can be an attuned leader and kind of do that dance where you're recognizing what they call the temperature in the room, right? You can gauge the room to see how things are doing, and being able to tell who might need a little bit more support and who's the one that might be able to jump in and do that. It's going to be better for your team. It's going to enhance personal connections by making sure that, like I said, if somebody's really struggling and somebody is on top of the world and they've got some extra bandwidth to help out, it's getting those people connected so that there can be support. And then it's the ability to know, if I'm one of your employees, that there will be support, that my leadership does care about me, genuinely care, that they are, I don't have to go into them and say, I'm drowning right now, can you help me? They have a sense of that because they know the work I'm doing. They know the caseload I have. They know how many hours I've been putting in, and they can make they know me enough to know where my limits are. Development of appropriate reactions. So just like Dave said this morning, he forgot that his team was going out last night and they were coming in late today. And so initially it sounds like his first reaction was not what he would consider the appropriate reaction. But then the minute he figured out what it was, then he could shift that. Well, if he didn't have the ability to be attuned, then he might just continue to say, well, why didn't you let me know last night, even though they'd already let him know. Being an attuned leader, part of that is owning when you forgot something, or when you made a mistake, or when your initial reaction wasn't the best reaction that you would like to give. So part of being an attuned leader is recognizing that we are only human as well, and that we can still acknowledge our humanness and be a good leader. And then it helps the leader stay on task. So if you have a team that's like a well-oiled machine because of your own attunement of your team, then it's going to make it easier for you to stay on task because your team will be running more smoothly. It highlights emotional intelligence. And again, emotional intelligence is very similar to attunement in that the emotional intelligence is the ability to understand what people are thinking and why they're responding in the way they're responding. It's kind of like being able to assess someone through their through how they're acting and the words that they're saying and how they're responding to others. So it's having the ability to say, you know, I'm walking in this office today and no one's joking, no one's laughing. There's something's going on. I can tell something's going on. If you are a tuned leader, there's more likely chance that you will be able to be adaptable because you won't have that need to be rigid because you know that your team is doing well and that you have the pulse on what's going on. And so if something comes up, it's easier for you to adapt because you don't have to have rigid rules to quote unquote control your staff. And then it builds confidence, not only in the leader, but in the staff as well. So if everyone feels like they're being heard, if you can feel like you have the rapport with your staff that they will listen to you and respect you and let you know if there's issues, then that's going to build confidence for your team, but it's also going to build confidence in you that you can be the best leader you can.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, all of this starts with you as a leader, as a supervisor. One of the really unintended consequences or benefits of the programs that we initiated that I really didn't think about at the time was the benefit that it gave to me as a supervisor. We put a mental health program into place, and we did it for our folks who were exposed to the trauma of child sexual abuse every single day. In putting that program together, one day I decided I'm going to sit down with our mental health professional. And I suddenly realized how beneficial it was for me as a supervisor who is stuck between my folks on the front line and then obviously the folks that I report to that are above me, other supervisors, the upper management. And so, you know, Ray makes a great point in terms of the curiosity of self-attunement, right? Taking a moment for yourself to figure out what triggers you, why you act the way you do, right? I mean, self-care starts with you, especially as a supervisor, as a leader. And I think a lot of times, you know, our ability to control our minds, control our emotions is so very important. Now, it's so very difficult, especially in law enforcement, criminal justice, social service work. It's very easy to get, you know, go off, fly off the handle and make a snap decision and not necessarily think about, you know, our folks and what they're going through. But I think when we have the ability to really step back, you know, and one of the best things that I've started doing is I've started telling people, listen, I'm not going to give you an answer right away. If we're out in the field and it's a life or death decision, then yes, you're gonna get a decision from me. It may not always be the right decision, but yes, it's going to come immediately. But when I'm in a situation where I'm in the office, when I have time to think about something, I'm going to say to people, give me a few minutes, you know, give me an hour maybe. I mean, let me think about this, not only from your standpoint, but also from my standpoint, for what we've done in the past and how we may see this down the road. I don't think there's anything wrong with just taking that breath, taking a walk, getting up, saying, hey, give me 5 minutes. Let me think about this. You caught me in the middle of something. I'll get you an answer. And a lot of times I think that avoids the conflict. It avoids sometimes making that snap decision that you're going to regret 5 or 10 minutes later. One of the things I do, and I'm sure people that drive next to me think I'm crazy, is I have deep conversations with myself out loud on the drive to work and from work. And I hope people think that I'm probably on my phone talking to somebody, but the reality is I have these conversations where I pose as both sides, where I talk it out, because when I hear it come out of my mouth, a lot of times it doesn't sound as good as what it sounds like up here in my mind. So, you know, it opens up some of the flaws in my thinking, in my discussion points. some of the things that I could say differently. Now, and 9 times out of 10, when I actually have that conversation with that person, it sounds good and it makes more sense than if I just had it off the cuff. So a lot of times it's just taking that moment to, control your mind, control your emotion, and that will really guide you, I think, in a lot of cases to make that right decision.
So what is another benefit? What are some more benefits for the ICAC leaders? It decreases the level of stress in the team. And, we can see this. From my own experience with our ICAC team, the more attuned whoever is in charge is, the better the team flows. And I've seen this from, since I've been there now, we've had our third person in charge. And what I've seen is that when someone initially comes in, Anthony was there forever and ever and ever. And so when I knew him, he was very attuned to the team and knew what to expect, and the team knew what to expect from him, and he knew their personalities and how things to managed. And then we had our next person come in, and understandably, initially, it takes a while to get to that level of attunement. It's not something that you can walk in and with a new team and suddenly be attuned to everybody, because there's that honeymoon phase of getting to know people. There's the phase of then you begin to know them, but then you don't really know them sometimes until there's duress that happens, or something really difficult, or something really positive, and then you begin to know them. But once you become an attuned leader, you can pick up on what's going on to decrease the stress levels of the team. So you will know, my team does really well when there's back-to-back-to-back warrants, but the stress level goes way up if they're having to sit in front of the computer for weeks on end without getting up. So what are you going to do about that to decrease the stress level? Well, maybe you could, mix up some warrants with some time in front of the computer, whatever works for your team. But part of being attuned is understanding what makes your team click. It increases the team resiliency. And so by that, we're talking about the team's ability to bounce back. So many times I've seen on our team that after a big case, or when it's been a really intense case or a really difficult case, there's this working endlessly and really fighting to get the case to court and to get the person that harmed the children where they needed to be in jail. And then afterwards, it's kind of this letdown. And then waiting to see what the court's going to do. And then, being able to bounce back after that and say, okay, I got this. We can get back on, we can do this again. And so it's that constant gathering information, then putting the information together, waiting to see how it's going to turn out, the letdown. And even if it's a positive result, there's the emotional letdown, just having it done with, and then being able to bounce back again. It provides a sense of agency. It provides a sense that we are all connected, and a sense that we are all part of the same team. Being attuned, you and your team will be more able to be creative. So when things are flowing, and I'm sure you can think about this on any team that you've either been a leader in or that you've been a part of, when a team is not going well, or when there's somebody in charge that doesn't get you, it's harder to be creative. And so if you can be attuned and you can understand what your staff is feeling and needing, you can understand how to navigate the stress maybe between team members. But if you can manage all of that, then your own creativity will increase, as well as the team's creativity, and that can make things flow even better. And then it promotes individual growth. So if you are able to be attuned to your staff, then you'll be able to recognize, I noticed on the last 2 or 3 cases, this person really shined in this area. Maybe I can get them some more training in that, and they can be the lead on this specific area of looking into a case. But by being attuned, you will recognize when that person is really proud of their accomplishment. By being attuned, you'll recognize when that individual is shining, and then think about using your creativity. What can I do to keep that person motivated and happy and going in that right direction? Because that's going to increase the longevity of your staff.
And I think that if I could just jump in real quick, Carol, I think that speaks to, there was a question before the session about, how do you engage staff when there is this limited buy-in for the goals? That's kind of a foreign concept for me because, with our mission of protecting children and ridding the internet of child exploitation material, I mean, most people that come into this unit, like, they know what the goals are. They know what the mission is. So, but obviously you're going to have folks who are working for a department or an agency or an organization, and they're just there to, collect a paycheck, and they're not buying into what the mission is. And when we speak about, providing this sense of agency or promoting individual growth, I think it's important to sit down with those folks and ask them, hey, what are you trying to get out of this job? What's your idea of this mission? We're so narrow focused in terms of internet crimes against children, but that doesn't keep me from still asking people, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to get out of this job? If you think something that we are doing that's protecting children isn't working, let's try something different. Let's see if there's something else that we can do within our stated goals and missions that, not only moves our mission forward, but also lights a fire within that individual that maybe reinvigorates them or, provides them that sense of purpose that they may be lacking.
Well, and Dave, do you think that it has anything to do with the fact that if someone is mandated to do ICAC cases as opposed to it's a voluntary thing, right? So if somebody doesn't really want to be doing ICAC cases, but they were put in that role for whatever reason, it could be much more difficult to get buy-in from them because they might not want to be there in the first place.
Well, and absolutely. And we've said for years, not just with ICAC, but with anything involving, criminal justice system, social service organizations. I think a lot of times people don't necessarily know what they're getting themselves into. I've talked to a lot of investigators who've said, I didn't realize that this is what it was going to entail. I didn't realize how bad it was going to be. For those folks that are constantly interviewing victims, that are working in children's advocacy centers, I mean, to hear those stories day in and day out, obviously can be very, very taxing and traumatizing. But we always want to make sure that people know what they're actually getting themselves into. Yes, I can absolutely view this material every single day for the rest of my career. And yet, a few months into the process, they're struggling. And so I want people to be honest with themselves too about, there's no shame. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier, no shame admitting that you're not as tough as you thought. No shame in admitting that you can't do this job 8 hours a day for the next 10 or 15 years. So I think it's really about taking stock in yourself and understanding what's there before you just say yes to a job or an assignment.
So, some other benefits, certainly, increases morale and decreases turnover and burnout. I've seen that with our own ICAC. We have a pretty low burnout rate, I would say, and we don't have people leave very often, except related to pay, and if people, there's only so much that we can do about that. There's limits to what the amount of money that's available. So it certainly can increase the morale and decrease the turnover and burnout because you can feel heard and you can feel understood. And then increasing the team harmony, which we've kind of talked about this already, where that sense of we're all fighting for the same goal. We're all on the same team. Nobody is trying to climb over somebody else to get ahead. Nobody's trying to do what they can to shine better than anybody else, because on this team, everybody shines. And on this team, everybody gets recognition. And on this team, even though there's days that are really difficult, we're all going to stick together. It also helps to clarify the team mission. So if you know as the Attuned leader what your team's mission is, and you don't just know the words, but you live the mission, that's going to go down into the staff as well. So your staff is going to feel that. And the mission won't be something that if I said, what is your mission? It wouldn't be something that they would have to go back and look up on a website. They would know what the mission is. and they would own it, and they would be proud of being of that's their mission, and they would want to carry that out. And then it builds trust among the whole team, because if you know what to expect and you know you don't have to try to backstab to get ahead or to get attention, or you don't have to do anything negative to just be seen, that's going to make a huge difference. If you know that you're honored and you're appreciated and understood, then you don't need to do any of those other things. You can feel accepted for who you are and understand that your qualities are appreciated.
Yeah, because that's what, really at the end of the day, I mean, that's what we want, right? We want to increase morale. We want to decrease turnover. We spend a lot of money and time on folks, especially those who are working these computer crimes, getting them to learn what they need to learn and investing in them as the equipment and the software and the time. But for me, and we've done that, in the last 8 or 9 years that we've had this policy in place, where we focus more on mental health and wellness, where we've been more attuned as supervisors and coworkers, we have seen a decrease in turnover. We have seen a decrease in burnout. And a lot of that is due to this idea that we've built that trust. We've clarified the mission. We've increased this harmony among the team. And that's, it's an odd thing to say in law enforcement. I mean, we all know that when we go out on the street, we'd have each other's backs, no question. But does that same harmony exist, in the day-to-day mundane approach of the office sometimes? That's where, we need to focus and really try to, be better. And in those down moments, look out for people, see those red flags, see the things that, maybe are not going as well for somebody as they could. Because when we go out in the street, we oftentimes, gloss over that. We don't necessarily see it right away. So we've done a lot with regards to trying to build that harmony around these ideas of, just trusting people, increasing the morale, and trying to decrease the burnout that we're seeing.
So what is the process to becoming an attuned leader? What is it? We've been talking about it as if it's something just go out and become attuned. It's not as necessarily as simple as that. For some people, it will be. For some people, if you go through life being more attuned, being more emotionally intelligent than others, it will be easier. It doesn't mean that you're defective if you're not automatically very attuned. It means you have, a different skill set. So how do you go about becoming an attuned leader? What do you do that's going to make you be able to get to this place that we're talking about? Well, one of the things is notice your responses. When somebody talks to you, comes to you, what is your immediate response when they say, hey, I'm really struggling? Do you kind of clench up? Do you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Do you kind of get annoyed and say, not this again? Do you even hear what they're having to say because you're thinking, oh, one more problem? Or do you respond in the, okay, I'm going to put down everything else. I'm going to turn away from the computer. I'm going to give this person all of my attention and all of my listening skills so that I can hear what they have to say. And if you can do that, that's going to make a huge difference, because you will be able to hear what they're saying and then be able to understand potentially what they're going to say. So that's one of the first ways to start. Notice how you respond to others. And this doesn't have to be just how you respond to people at work. It's a skill that you need to practice. And so practice it with your kids, with your spouse, with your friends. When you're engaging with others, how do you respond when they tell you good news, when they tell you bad news, when they need your help, when they're angry? Notice your responses and then kind of keep track on, is this the way that I would like to respond? Or would I like to respond in a different way? Would I like to be less snippy? Would I like to be more focused? What is it about that response that I would like to change? And the more you then begin to notice that, the more you can practice new ways of responding, and then that becomes the new habit. And so the first step of attuned leadership, noticing your responses and responding in a much more appropriate way, will be that box will be checked off. The second skill to becoming an attuned leader is listening and hearing. So it's not just having somebody talk, and you're nodding your head, or they're talking while you're on the computer, or they're talking while you're on the phone or texting. It's putting everything down again and giving that person your full attention and being able to really understand what they're saying. And I know Dave said that active listening skills are not his strength, but that's one of the things that's really a skill that's very important if you can do that. So when someone says something, if you're not really clear on what they're trying to say, then you can ask them. So this is what I heard you say. Because it's much better for you to be able to make a decision or have a conversation with somebody when you know that you're both on the same page. And then be present. Again, that's just being there in the moment without 35 other distractions keeping you going. And so how does that look? It looks like putting everything else down when you're present. It means when you're at home with your spouse or your kids, you're not watching TV and just saying, It's stopping and talking to them. Now, the key about this is it doesn't mean that you are at the mercy of everybody else, and every time somebody says something, you have to drop everything and let it go. It means, if you are in the middle of something, you can say, I really want to be present for you, and I can't do it right now. Can we try again in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or next week or whatever you need to say? But it doesn't mean that suddenly you then, to be an attuned leader, you have to just be at the beck and call of everybody else. It means that when you have committed to listening to people, when you've committed to having a conversation, that you are fully present. And then taking a deep breath. Why do we say to take a deep breath? Because when someone starts to talk to us about something difficult, our stress level goes up, and then oftentimes our breathing becomes more shallow, and we're not getting oxygen to our brain. Well, obviously, if we're not getting oxygen to our brain, then we're not going to be able to think clearly, and we're not going to be able to support that person or even have a conversation with them, whether it's a great conversation or a difficult conversation. So just taking a deep breath will give us the opportunity to figure out how we do want to respond. It will give us the opportunity to kind of weigh in our head what it is they've said and how we want to respond. And then mix that in with some active listening and say, so if I heard you correctly, this is what you said, and then wait for that feedback. And then in that process, it will slow the whole conversation down, which will give both of you an opportunity to think about what you want to say and to be much more attuned to yourself, actually, and to that individual.
And there's three, that's a great point there, that last point. And there's three questions that you can ask yourself. And I actually have the words 3 questions on a little sticker on the side of my desk that faces me. First question, does this need to be said, right? Second question, does this need to be said by me? And then third question, does this need to be said by me right now? Okay. And I go through that in my head when I'm having a conversation with someone, because so often you want to respond right away. And you think in your head, you've listened and you have the idea of what you're going to say, and then you just say it. And then you realize that that's not correct, or you realize that you could have waited a little bit to say it, or maybe you needed to dwell on it for a little bit. So, when you take that deep breath, ask yourself those 3 questions. It's done wonders for me in terms of just that immediacy of responding. But also think about how your office, your area that you work in is set up. For the longest time, my computers were always right in front of me. And so when somebody would sit across from me and we'd have a conversation, I would find myself looking down at my computer screen. I'd see an email pop up and I'd start responding to that. And I'd still be somewhat listening. That person would still be sitting right in front of me. But one of the things that I've done in our new office is I've put all of my computers either behind me or to the left of me. So I have to take a 90-degree turn whenever somebody walks into my office. And what it does is then it's created this clear path between my chair and their chair, where there's a lamp next to me, but there's no monitor distractions, there's no device distractions. And it's really helped me be a better listener. Still working on it, as I said, but it helps me with the listening. It helps me to be present. There's no distractions between myself and whoever I'm talking to. And those things have helped me become that better attuned leader. And I think we have another chat question for you. So if you wouldn't mind, again, putting your answers in the chat window there. What do you think are some qualities of good leaders? Humility, I couldn't agree with that more. We've talked a lot about self-awareness as well. Just taking the time to look inward, right?
I like unselfishness because that's something that is not always very easy to do. It's particularly in stressful situations, we sometimes go into almost like survival mode. And so we've got to make sure we are protected ourselves, and that can come across as being selfish. But it's being able to say, we've got this together much more so than individually. Good communicator, sets examples. Yep, motivates. Integrity, like that one. Wisdom and the ability to admit you do not know something and then finding the answer. Yeah, and that's not always easy, because particularly if you're new to a position, or if you feel like your team is expecting you to know everything, if you come in and don't have all the answers, that can, there can be the concern that they're not going to think that I'm a strong leader. Well, you're a human, and you're not going to know every answer to everything. And so showing your staff that you are able to admit that you don't have all the answers can go a long way.
And I think that speaks to why it's important to know your team, right? Because there are going to be folks on your team that know more than you do about certain things. And so when I say I don't know the answer to that, let me consult with somebody else. I mean, I think it shows some humility. It shows some knowledge that, I don't know everything, and I'm going to lean on the people that do.
Yep, and admitting when you're wrong goes right hand in hand with that. It's not admitting we don't know everything, admitting when we were wrong. Because if you can admit when you're wrong, it's easier for somebody to come to you and say, you know what, I was wrong. Being a diplomat, yes, that's always important.
Especially if you're working somewhere that's very political. My whole entire law enforcement career has been working for elected officials. So I have always said, there's a diplomacy to everything that we do, not just because it's political, but because a lot of times that creates harmony, and it helps me, kind of navigate the road, if you will, to get to the decision or the best practice that I want to put into play.
Learning from mistakes, to receive input from subordinates. Yep. And then again, it's always this fine line of when, yes, I want to be able to receive input, but I also don't want staff to think they can run all over me, or they can walk all over me, and they get to tell me what to do so that they're actually in charge. It's that fine line. And the more you know your staff, the more you'll know which ones you kind of have to say thanks for the input and then move on. And then the ones where you really want to hear their voice. And sometimes there are, in some offices, there's people who will give you a suggestion for everything. And then there's one person that doesn't. And when that one person does give you the suggestion, that might be something that's either very important to them, or it's a really key idea that you want to consider.
And this is a journey, right? I think, with anything that we do, there's a journey to being a better leader, to being more attuned. And so really when we talk about attunement and leadership, there's really, 4 stops that we're going to talk about, right? Self-knowledge, your leadership qualities, the qualities that make you a better or more effective leader, the core values, and then, your vision, or the vision of the agency, as we talked about earlier, the mission, the goals, the things that you want to put into place. So I think it's important to ask yourself some questions as you travel along this road. Number one, what are the qualities that you see in yourself that make you a good leader? If you've had some time to reflect on your role as a supervisor or a leader, what are the qualities that work for you? What are the qualities that don't work? I mean, what are the things that you'd like to change? What are the, aspects of being a leader that are most difficult for you that you can step back and, take some of that, self-awareness, inner awareness that we've talked about and transform it into something that is more of a positive or a benefit for you. When we talk about core values, right? Your beliefs as a person. And, I was raised a certain way. My parents instilled the morals and the values in me. And I'd like to think that those have followed through or carried with me as I went from an investigator to a supervisory role, right? How I behave, how I see people, how I understand what they're going through, the difference between right and wrong. That's been the biggest challenge for me is just, realizing that now I have folks that are dependent upon me as a supervisor, as a leader. It's not as easy just to make the same decisions that I made when I was an investigator or when I was working on the front line. What are some areas I'd like to work on in order to become a stronger or more attuned leader? We talked a little bit earlier about, being aware and being curious and understanding what you can do better to be stronger, to be more attuned, to be more in focus or more in step with your people. What are 2 tools that I can use to help me build my attunement as a leader? Right? Start small. Right? You don't have to change the way you do things overnight. You don't have to suddenly become that great listener and that attuned, dialed in leader overnight. It's going to take some time. So, perhaps there are some things that you can do. You can say, I'm going to focus on being a better listener. That's what I'm going to start with. And then I'm going to start taking the time and spending more time with my people. I read a great book years ago that talked about how, CEOs of major corporations would walk around the office, and they called it taking the temperature of the office. They'd focus on employees. They'd spend time with people, not just a simple, hey, good morning, how you doing? But, 10, 15 minutes with people to say, hey, how have you been? How was your weekend? What's going on? Maybe they noticed something in those folks. Maybe the office temperature seems a little different than it did last week. And it's an opportunity then, not just sitting behind your desk, not just isolating yourself in your office, to understand really what's going on there. And then what is your vision for your team? And how can you help advance that vision? I think as we talk about this journey, we all want to make sure that our vision, that our goals, that the mission of the unit or your organization succeeds. And a lot of times we put that on our people. We say, hey, you've got, cases you have to work, you have exams you have to finish, you've got 60 interviews of victims and children that need to be done. But how can we help that vision as well as supervisors? What can I do to take some stuff off the plates of my folks? What can I do to be there and provide them support? I may not work cases anymore, but I certainly can provide, the resources and be more attuned and provide that, support and comfort in a lot of cases that will help them as they, advance the vision of the unit.
And, going off of that, Dave, I think that if you can start practicing your own attunement at work, you might notice that you're more attuned at home. Or if you can start practicing attunement at home, you might notice that it's going to bleed over to work. And there's nothing wrong with being attuned at home and at work, I can guarantee you. So, if your one small step that you're going to take is every time someone's going to talk to me, I will not have any distractions. And that can be the place you start. And if you start doing that at home, it will be easier for you to follow through with that at work and vice versa. And then what you might notice is a shift in how all of the people around you are responding to you. Because if you can have a conversation with someone and you're truly listening and hearing what they're saying, they might not have to keep coming back to you with that same kind of question or same conversation, because you might be able to be engaged enough in that conversation that you can fix or resolve or together come up with an idea to get that situation figured out. So, for instance, if your spouse, partner, child comes to you at home and says, I need some help with this, and you're half listening because you've got other things on your mind, and you throw out some kind of a suggestion that wasn't really a well thought out suggestion, probably they're going to come back to you 3 or 4 more times, still stuck on that problem. Same thing at work. If you can put everything aside and you can say, I'm going to focus 100% on what you're saying and what you're meaning, so I can understand this, so we can come up with a solution now. You might find that the things in your life that used to be repeat, like the revolving door of people coming and asking you the same thing over and over, that might be able to decrease because you're actually attuned and listening and hearing what individuals are saying.
Yeah, Carol, we're not even going to talk about my listening skills at home, so we'll just skip right on to the next slide there.
I cannot imagine, Dave, that you are not listening to your family. They've stuck with you long enough. You have to be listening to something.
We're working on it.
So another piece of roadmap to attunement is self-knowledge through reflection and skill building. And sometimes it's easier for us, I would say the majority of time, it's easier for us to try to look out at the people that we know, whether it's work life, home life, and figure out the things that they need to work on, as opposed to what we need to work on. Understanding ourselves can make us very humble, and it takes a lot of humility and vulnerability. So it's not an easy thing to do necessarily. But understanding yourself through reflection and skill building, and reflecting back on those conversations, reflecting back on, every time I talk with this individual, it doesn't go well. But every time I talk to this one, it does. So what's different about this conversation as opposed to this one? And how can I bring more of that, the positive experiences into the person that I'm not getting along with? But that's owning our own part of that. It's owning the fact that we are an integral part of that relationship. And then learning the skills around how we can increase our, our attunement, and recognizing that it's okay to not be perfect on it because we're beginning, or even if we're not beginning, we're not at the end of our learning about attunement. I'm still learning about attunement, and here I am training about it. So it's not that, I am the attunement goddess. I just know what I know, and it's a constant learning process. Knowing the qualities of good leadership. Now, what is good leadership compared to what do you believe good leadership is, right? So I can throw out a list of things that I think are good leaders, qualities of good leadership, but it might not match your personality, or it might not match the things that your team needs, or it might not match what you believe. So knowing what you believe are the good qualities, the qualities of good leadership, and then following those, and then going back down that list, on a regular basis, thinking, is there anything I want to add, or is there anything that I want to take off? Are these things that I thought were really important qualities still really important qualities? So recognizing that attunement, like anything else in life, is a living process. There's going to be days where you're better at it, where it's more difficult, where you can add more skills, where you're doing, maybe there's going to be a while where things are sailing through and it's looking real good, and then you hit a roadblock. But knowing that it's going to be this ever changing and evolving process. And then understand what is most important to you. Most important to you at work, with regard to your relationship, with regard to achieving the mission, with regard to being the leader that you want to be. What is the most important thing? And then create a vision for your team. Now, you could decide to have a team meeting, and you could sit down and in your own mind come up with what you have the vision for, and then have people add to that. Or you could sit down and have a blank slate and have everybody just start getting together about creating a vision for the team. It's good to get buy-in from others, because if you can get buy-in from others, it's a greater likelihood that you will be able to have them go along with you. So if you come out and you say, this is the vision for our team, there's no comments, no discussion, more than likely there's going to be some resistance. But if everybody feels like you are respecting and acknowledging them and allowing them to have input, that's going to be huge as far as creating a vision for your team that your team will actually follow.
And I think it's setting clear expectations, right? I mean, we've set out the mission. We have a mission statement. We've listed our goals. We let people know what our expectations are as a unit. Now, our unit is obviously clearly defined, and we have a very narrow focus in the internet crimes against children world. But regardless of what you do or what organization you're a part of, I mean, I think to be able to lay out those expectations so people know what's expected of them, works wonders. And I also try and be as transparent as I can. I'm the conduit between the folks on the front line and then my upper management, who sometimes don't make the right decisions or the best decisions or the decisions that make sense. But when I hear those, when I can be as transparent as possible, sometimes that helps build harmony and also helps the folks that I supervise understand, what's going on the other side. So I think a lot of times it's all about that idea of transparency and laying out or creating that vision that the group or the organization can understand. There's a great quote from Nelson Mandela here, and I think my focus as a supervisor will always be making the right decisions or making the best decisions for the folks that I supervise, keeping them safe, and making sure that I can move forward the mission and the goals of the unit. But secondly, I think, and almost as important, is this idea that, I want to celebrate people. I want to promote the people that are coming up. I've been fortunate enough to do 26 years in law enforcement. I mean, as satisfying as it has been, I'm looking down the road. I'm thinking about, life after law enforcement. So I want to be thinking about celebrating people who can come in and take my place, who can succeed me, that, because some people want to be supervisors. Some people want to move up and they want to advance in their career. So, one of the things that I'm trying to do now is every single day celebrate the victories of other people. I mean, I don't need my name out there. I want to support and celebrate the people that are really out there doing the work. So any chance I have to write an email, I do a bi-weekly report where I mention by name the investigators, the work they've done, the cases they've moved forward. If an examiner finds some great evidence on a forensic exam, I'm going to highlight that. So I want to make sure that we celebrate, and that goes a long way in terms of all the other things that we've talked about, not just from a personal promotion standpoint for an employee, but for their morale and their resiliency and all the things that we're trying to put into play. You'd be amazed at how simple a handwritten note is. I have these little sticky notes that say like awesome citation on them, and I give them out to people occasionally. I'll just tack it on their door or I'll put it on their bulletin board. I'll take the time to do something that I don't normally do. And, there's a lot of time for us to do that when we're not in harm's way. When we're out in the field, it's a different story. But when we have the time to celebrate and appreciate what people are doing, there's more buy-in and there's more harmony from them coming around, coming back around.
So our third question, what are some tools you gain to add to your roadmap? So is there anything in particular that you learned today that you might want to incorporate into your leadership style today? Or is there anything that we didn't mention that you want to tell us about that you found as a good tool? And if you could put that in the chat. Celebrate others, yep. Solicitate feedback as much as possible. Yes. And again, just because someone gives feedback doesn't mean that we have to take it and use it. We can hear the feedback without having to take it. Create a space for transparency. I think that's really important. I think that the days of the us and them kind of division is not working for anybody anymore. I think there's got to be some, not that you have to tell staff exactly what's going on in every detail or why every decision that you make is made, but being able to just have some level of transparency. Gather a person's likes for future celebrations, favorite candy, sodas. Yeah, that was, Dave, you said you do that, right? Isn't that
Yep.
what you said you do? Yeah, I like
Yep.
that idea. I want to come work for you.
Well, we fill out enough forms and documents all day. I figured, hey, this is an easy one that everyone can get behind, right? I mean, they were, now I know what their favorite coffee is. I know what, where they'd like to go if I want to buy them a gift card. I'm not guessing. I'm not asking questions. It's nice to have that information. And that's the thing. A lot of these tools that folks have mentioned here, I mean, they're simple, right? I mean, all you really need is some time to think about what you're doing and then put it into practice, a little bit of effort. And that's why I think, we oftentimes overlook how easy it is to build trust, build harmony, to be transparent. I cringe whenever I hear people say, in upper management, I have an open door policy. Well, do you really? Can I really come in and talk to you and speak my mind, or am I going to be, punished for that? So if you're going to say that, then mean that. And someone mentioned it earlier, right? The ability that, I want feedback from people. I may not always take it. I may not always agree with it, but if I'm going to say to people, hey, give me your feedback on me as a supervisor, I better be willing to listen and be prepared to, ingest it.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine that goes a long way, even though you've requested their favorite candy or soda or coffee was, even though you asked them for it, when they know that you've gone to the trouble to go back and look at that list, and then there's their favorite candy bar sitting on their desk, that goes a long way, because it means that you gathered the information for a reason and that you're actually paying attention to the information that they gave. And so that takes the whole relationship to a different level. No longer is it just boss and employee, it's human to human. Whether you are supervising me or not, you still recognize that I'm a person. And that alone is huge. That goes such a long way.
Yeah, I think that's what this last comment right here really speaks to. We need to create this safe space, because when we're out in the field, when we're dealing with the public, it's not a safe space. So when we have the opportunity to be in our little world of our office, like, we need to do what we can to create an environment that is, allows people to take their armor off and feel like they can discuss issues or discuss things freely, when they need to. And I think this comment really hits it all in on the head here. It's just understanding people. People are going to bring, this idea of work-life balance, this idea of leaving your personal life at home and your work life at work is just not feasible. So what can we do to better balance that, to where you can feel free to come into work and discuss things that are happening in your personal life? Or when you go home, are there people in your personal life that understand or can at least listen to some of the things you're dealing with at work? I think that's a better idea or better use of this work-life balance than just saying at 4:30, I'm going to just turn it off. I'm going to go home. I'm not going to think about it till 8:30 next day. And I'm going to do the same thing when I come to work with my personal life. I want to flip that script and have people who are talking about work at home and talking about their personal lives at work.
Well, and I love the comment, the simplicity of honoring the beauty of everyone's journey, strengths, and favorite song. It's being able to recognize that all of us want basically the same thing. We all just want to be happy. We want to feel excited about the work we do. We want to feel like we're making a difference. And so that knowing that and recognizing that that journey looks very, very different for each of us, and honoring that and saying, I can accept you for who you are, and I know that sometimes we might not agree with what needs to be done or how it needs to be done, or sometimes I have to push you to get things done that you don't agree with. I'm still honoring you as an individual. And then don't let it overtake you. And the reason that we have this slide here is because we've thrown out some ideas, and you all have some really great ideas, but we don't want people to then suddenly feel like I've got to make this change and this change and this change and this change. And, trying to figure out which, like Dave said, choose one that you'd like to focus on. And then when you've got that down, then add another one in. But don't feel like I have to change everything about me. And don't feel like you have to change things that don't fit for you. It's not going to be useful if you try to become somebody you're not, because you want to become an attuned leader. So take the pieces that feel real to you and start working on those, but don't let it overtake you. Don't make everything become a should, because then it's a chore and it's harder to do, and you're not going to be as successful in the endeavor.
And it's not real to believe that we're going to go from point A to point B in a straight line, that we're not going to have, hurdles. We're not going to have setbacks. We're not going to have challenges that are going to, in a lot of cases, make us better, right? I mean, would I love if I could, be this top part of this graphic and get on the bike and get to my goal at the end of every day with no problem? Sure. But having worked in this space for internet crimes against children for the last 18 years, it's been more satisfying in a lot of cases to go down into that hole, to have to climb up and realize how satisfying it was to, overcome some of those challenges and some of those hurdles. We're not a group that just says, all right, we can't figure out who the offender is, so we're just going to move on to the next case, right? To realize that if we struggle and get through some of the challenges, and ultimately at the end of the day realize that this wasn't just any normal offender, it was an offender who was abusing real children, or who was hands-on, or a member of the community that was in a position of trust, that we stopped from committing these crimes and we rescued some children. None of our investigations are as you see there at the top. They're more like what we deal with on the bottom there. And I suspect that that's the way it is for most of you, that your reality is a number of challenges, a number of hurdles, a number of setbacks. But at the end of the day, recognizing that they're going to happen, recognizing that, we're going to need to stumble a few times before we get to the finish line, in a lot of cases is a more satisfying thing to overcome, and just, I think, really highlights the importance of having a team and working together, and because we're not pulling ourselves up by ourselves. We're using our teammates. We're using the personnel that we have at our disposal, and that's a lot easier said than done when we understand who they are as people and what their strengths are and how they can contribute to the overall mission that helps us through some of these challenging times.
So this is one of my favorite quotes. Anyone can slay a dragon, she told me, but try waking up every morning and loving the world all over again. That's what takes a real hero. So I've always enjoyed this quote because the work that I do with the ICAC staff, the work that you all do, the difficult work that you all do day in and day out, it's not like you have one bad day and say, sorry, I'm not going back. You know how hard your work's going to be. You know you're going to slay a dragon every day. And then yet you go home and you get up the next morning and you do it again. And so the skill and the dedication and the devotion and the love that you have for children in order to sacrifice your own mental health for them is huge. And so I just really like to acknowledge that I certainly appreciate the work that you do, and hope that you have learned something today that you can take away that will help you continue to slay the dragon.
And I think a lot of times too, it's knowing your why, right? I mean, I want you to spend some time, if you haven't already, like, how do you answer that question? When people say, why do you do this job? Why do you continue to get up in the morning and put your feet on the floor and come to work for, not as much money as you should be making, and not as much notoriety, and, all of the burdens and stresses that come along with it? Why do you do that? And I think when you have that answer, and sometimes it's, writing your own mission statement, sometimes it's putting it down on paper as to why you do what you do, that will help you, get out of bed every morning. That will help you continue to do this, even despite all of the challenges and the issues and the hurdles that we face. And so as we wrap up here today, I mean, hopefully we've given you some, some things to think about as far as becoming an effective leader. We've tried to discuss the importance of wellness for success while in that leadership role, the importance of taking time for yourself, understanding the role that mental health plays, not only with your folks, but also with you and even the people that are above you. There's nothing that says you can't impart the mental health and wellness policies that we've put into practice or that maybe you put into practice to the people that are above you. Involve them as well so that they understand that it's not just a simple job that anyone can do. We've talked about the importance of self-compassion for success, empathy, caring, gratitude, some basic morals and values in life that, go a long way in terms of making you a better leader. And then we've examined the steps needed to create an effective and resilient team. So hopefully you take some of what you've learned here today and you not only put it into practice, but you talk to some of the folks that you work with or that work for you or that work above you, and how they can buy into this idea of a more resilient and harmonious team.
So much, Carol and Dave. That was really interesting, and I think I learned a lot, even for someone who's not in a leadership role. You can definitely take away a lot from this material. So this is our contact info. If anybody has any questions, they can feel free to reach out to either Dave, Carol, or myself. Please join us for our next part in our webinar series. Part 2 will be on May 16th. We'll be discussing self-compassion for leaders. Part 3 will be on June 6th. We'll be discussing wellness strategies for effective leaders. Part 4 will be discussing building an effective team, and it will be on July 18th. We are running a little short on time. We did get quite a few questions in the pre-registration. Is there any specifically, Carol or David, you wanted to ask?
I don't have the questions. I don't have the questions right in front of me. Dave, do you have the questions in front of you? Is there one that sticks out to you? I know we had some really great ones.
Somebody asked the question if you can mandate therapy, and I know that's different for every organization. We were fortunate enough to have buy-in from our command staff, and we basically said we're gonna fund the program, we're gonna support the program, and in turn, we're gonna ask people to attend a mandatory group session, a mandatory one-on-one session. And despite the fact that we had some naysayers, at the end of it all, I mean, everybody bought into it. Everybody understood the importance of it. And that was really the catalyst for increasing the morale, increasing the, decreasing the burnout that we were seeing prior to having this program in place. So I know there are some, union issues sometimes, organizational issues sometimes, but when you have that conversation, when you can have that open conversation, when you can break through some of that stigma and sort of set the standard ahead of time, I think in a lot of cases, mandating it if you can be very beneficial.
And I noticed a question about resistance. Why are people resistant? I think that there's people in general, and more so in law enforcement or law enforcement type jobs, are resistant because if they look around them and they see the other people really working hard and it looks like they're not having any issues, by acknowledging that you want to go see somebody or that your staff wants to go see somebody, it makes you feel like you're less than. Like they've got it all together, why don't I? When in fact, nobody has it all together. Some just are better at hiding it than others. So I think there's resistance to therapy. I think there's resistance to self-care and wellness because people oftentimes don't recognize that they need the support, don't feel like they can, like things aren't so bad. So you might think, well, it's not that bad. I'm just a little more angry than I used to be or a little bit more depressed than I used to be. But they don't see the trajectory of where they came from and where they are now. So they don't necessarily recognize the need for that, which is another reason why it's nice, if possible, to have mandatory, because then they go to see somebody and have that opportunity. So for our team, it's not mandatory, it's highly recommended. And what I do, because I have the opportunity, I just pop in at the office, and we've got a quiet room upstairs from our office, and people want to see me, I can just go right in there and talk to them. And they've known me for so long that it doesn't feel like they're going to therapy. It feels like they're just sitting down with me to have a chat. So I think part of the way to get acceptance is, like Dave talked about earlier, acknowledging that he was going to go check in with somebody. You don't have to say, I'm going to check in with somebody because I'm having marriage problems or because I've had this long-term depression. You can just say, I want you all to know that I think that it's great to go in for a checkup. Just like we take our car in for maintenance, we all need some mental health maintenance too. So if you can set that tone that mental health maintenance is an acceptable thing in the office, then it will be much easier for you to get staff buy-in. And then also some people feel like, I can't even take that hour off a week to go see somebody. I don't have the time. What's going to happen to everything if I'm gone? Well, honestly, the rebuttal to that really is, if you're mentally feeling better, feeling more resilient, feeling less anxious or less depressed or less stressed, you will be more effective in your work. So definitely resistance is very, very common, but there are certainly ways to kind of challenge that resistance and encourage people. And one of the best ways to do that is by starting out and you acknowledging that mental health tune-ups are great.
Well, and I think that was the benefit of saying, for at least for us, it's mandatory, because it also said to people, the office recognizes that it's important, and they're basically saying that it's okay to take an hour out of our day, or a few hours every month to do a group session to put aside what we're working on. There was a question about, how do we promote wellness with teams that are consistently short-staffed? I'm trying to get away from this idea that, we have to work every single thing that comes into our office. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd have another 20 people and I would be able to do that. And I want to work as many cases as possible, but saying to ourselves as a unit, as a society, that we're going to work every single thing that comes through our door, through our email, that's not realistic. It's not feasible in this day and age. So, what we're saying to people is, listen, you have some autonomy. You're getting cases from me. I want you to make a decision. Is this something that we need to work now? Is this something that we can set aside and keep our eyes on, but not necessarily have our foot on the gas for? Okay. So we're giving people some more decision-making ability on the front line with the cases that they're getting, the tips that they're focusing on. But we're also still in all of this work promoting this idea of wellness. Yes, you have 15, 20, 30 cases assigned to you, but I still want you to take some time each day to focus on yourself. The work will be there tomorrow. And that's the one thing that I realized as an ICAT commander when I came into this. People said, no matter how hard you work, if you put in 12 hours a day, there's still going to be 12 hours of work tomorrow. And so that was really the light bulb moment that made me realize, I've got to take care of myself. Amidst all the work I got to do and my folks have to do, we still have to have time to be well and to take care of ourselves.
So we'll go ahead and pass it on to the analysis. With her closing remarks, thanks everyone so much.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. I just have a few slides that have some information and links related to OJJDP and NTAC. So if you need to contact us for any webinar materials, you can contact us at this email. And some links to OJJDP resources. And if you have any training or technical assistance needs, you can use our TTA 360 platform, as well as the link to OJJDP's multimedia page. And I also want to remind you that you will be receiving an email with the presentation as well as a link to a feedback survey. We'd really appreciate if you would fill out the feedback survey to help us improve our future webinars. So with all that said, I just want to say thank you so much for attending today and have a great day.